Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Alberta Securities Commission's webinar on how to file a report of exempt distribution. My name is Gregory Radisic, legal counsel of the Capital Markets and Innovation team here at the ASC. Later on in the session, we'll be joined by Tanya Fleming, who's the manager of the Private Markets and Innovation team. Our Private Markets and Innovation team is responsible for the review of these reports of exempt distribution, otherwise known by the acronym REDS. The purpose of this webinar today is to provide a basic understanding of what a report of exempt distribution, or RED, is, how they're filed, and provide comments on trends, best practices, and frequently asked questions that people tend to have. This is with the overarching goal to improve the understanding and filing habits of our first-time, do-it-yourself RED filers and repeat filers. As such, this presentation is really geared towards newbies, startups and small businesses who might be filing for the first time, and even new lawyers who are really interested in learning the process for their future clients. I also want to let you know that this webinar is being recorded, so no need to make notes furiously, as this will become a resource based on our private markets and innovation page on the ASC website, and likely also on the small business page. So, essentially, we'll begin today with an introduction of what is a RED. So if you're issuing securities in Alberta and doing so by taking advantage of certain prospectus exemptions, then a report must be filed. You can check National Instrument 45-106 that outlines all of our or most of our prospectus exemptions, see which exemptions require a RED. For example, the National Instrument 45-106 in section 2.3, the accredited investor exemption requires one, as well as the family, friends, and business associates also does as well, as long as you meet the criteria that's within there. Issuers, which are people who are raising money, must keep track of important factors using REDs, such as who's invested in their company and how many securities have actually been issued. REDs are one of the various tools that allow regulators to verify and ensure that those who are taking part of and taking advantage of prospectus exemptions are doing so because they actually qualify for that exemption. And to learn more about reports of exempt distributions, you can consult our CSA website. It's the Canadian Securities Administrators website at the link there. Now, this following step-by-step tutorial is based on a fictional company that I thought up called Stampede Essentials, Inc. This company is based in Calgary and has only really distributed securities to Canadian investors. And this distribution has been done on its own without using a dealer or an underwriter and any third-party assistance. So this is important to keep in mind as we go through. If your company personally kind of doesn't fit with this in this criteria, then your process might look a little bit different. So just keep that in mind. So before we begin, there are two things that kind of must happen. So REDs are filed using a software or a website called CDAR Plus. So before being able to file a RED, you must answer yes to the following two questions. One, do you have a CDAR Plus account? So an account for yourself personally. If not, you can register. If you see the red bubble there, it says register to file. So you can register there on the home page. And after you've created a personal account, the next question is, does your company have a CDAR Plus account? So once you have a personal account, then you're able to register your company by following the various steps that are also on the CDAR Plus website. It's a little bit outside of the scope of this presentation, but I thought it was important to let people know that you need an account and your business needs an account to go forward and file a RED. So if you're uncertain about the steps, I've included the links here for you to be able to take a look on your own. So now we'll move into our step-by-step tutorial, which I think is really important because it can be even hard just to find where you even file. So we'll first begin by kind of locating where do you actually click to be able to file a RED. So first you must log into CDAR Plus from the homepage of CDAR. And you'll see I have it here in red. It says filer login. And in order to file a red, you must be logged in. So you click that filer login button, and then you'll be directed to a home page. After logging in, you click the Your Profile section of the page and select the company you would like to file a red for. So like I said, your company should have been registered. And if you have multiple companies, you're able to use that search bar function. If you only have one, it'll be the only option to click under Your Profiles tab. So my company is named Stampede Essentials Inc. So I would click that, and it would bring me to the company page. After clicking on my company profile, I'm then directed to my company page, and I'll scroll down all the way to the bottom of the company profile page and click Exempt Market Offerings. Finally, you're at the point where you can create a report of exempt distribution form. So for the purposes of our company, I would click Create a Report of Exempt Distribution, Form 45 dash 106 F1. And then this is where you get to select the subtype of your report after you've clicked that button. So for us, the subtype is Create a Report of Exempt Distribution under Form 45 106 F1 from this drop-down menu. And then I click kind of Create the report, and it'll generate it to the next page. Now, a note, if you have only foreign investors, your process will be different. So if you have a mix of foreign and Canadian, likely this is the process you would follow. But if all of your investors are, let's say, from the United States or from somewhere in Europe, then you likely are relying on a different type of form. So when you select that option, just ensure that you select the right option. Otherwise, you won't be able to fill in the necessary information. So for this purpose, I'm selecting the one there under Form 45 106 F1, and I'll be going on to the next page, and I'll actually be able to start filling out my report of exempt distribution. So the first question to answer under this step is whether you are relying on an exemptive relief order to file outside of the 10-day distribution period. So if yes, and you're relying on an exemptive relief order that allows you more than 10 days to file your red, then you insert a citation number here. If multiple exemptive relief orders are applicable, then make sure that you're putting all of these citation numbers. If no, another question will pop up asking whether there are any other orders that you're relying upon in addition to a first order. However, for the first part, it's likely that your answer will be no for the first two questions. Typically, as a filer, you're supposed to file within the 10-day period, and if you haven't sought specific relief, or there isn't specific relief to do so outside of that 10-day period, then this would not apply to you. So for our cases, my answer is no to the first two questions, as I'm trying to file after 10 days of issuing my securities. The next step is essentially picking the jurisdictions where you issued securities. So this page is called Select Recipient Agencies. It's simply asking, where are your shareholders investing from, or where are your securities holders investing from? You must select all that apply for the distribution of shares. So for my company, Stampede Essentials Inc., we recently issued securities of our company to investors located in Alberta and British Columbia, and I distributed some shares to friends and family in Nova Scotia and Ontario. So I've selected those 4 provinces. If somehow you've distributed securities to every province, then you can just click all provinces and territories in Canada. And then the next question is asking who your principal regulator is for this filing. And many people kind of get confused. They go, sometimes as an Alberta-based company, maybe you'll only raise money from people in British Columbia. So should British Columbia be overseeing your transaction or be the regulator overseeing everything? However, this is where your business is headquartered and where it's based in Canada. It's not necessarily where it's registered as a business. So businesses can be registered in multiple provinces and territories at the same time. So it's where is the headquarters of your business? So even if you have no investors in Alberta, if you are an Alberta-based issuer, then you'll have to file your report of exempt distribution within Alberta. So Stampede Essentials Inc. is probably Albertan and based in Calgary. So just ensure that a common misconception is that it's not where your business is registered, it's where it's headquartered. So for us, we'd be clicking Alberta. The next step in the form provides the opportunity for you to include additional comments if required to include greater specificity or clarity. This section is typically left blank, but if you feel like this applies to you, then fill it out if it's applicable. Otherwise, just click the green button, save and continue, and you'll move on to the next page of the form. The next page asks if you are completing a brand new report or you want to amend a previous report of exempt distribution. In this case, we're creating a brand new report of exempt distribution, so I would just click new and save and continue. This page asks if you want to indicate the type of person certifying the report. In this case, because of what we filled out when we established our profile, our company profile on CDAR Plus, in that kind of pre-filing form, we let them know that we're an issuer and not an investment fund. So this is all pre-populated for us. And there's really nothing to select. The only thing to select is the save and continue button. Now, there's an important note. I have it highlighted at the bottom because people will say, wait, that didn't apply to me. I can't select anything. What do I do? Well, this section is pre-populated based on your issuer profile, right? So if you're not this type of issuer, an issuer other than an investment fund, then you must actually save and continue, exit this form, and go back into your profile that you established and ensure that that's set up and you edit that to be the most accurate description. The next step asks for you to review the legal name and identifying information of the issuer. This is a really important step because it ensures that all the information that you've provided to us is accurate and you're able to be identified as that specific issuer by us, the regulator. It also asks to indicate whether you had a co-issuer for the security distribution. A co-issuer is another person or organization that was distributing securities jointly alongside you. If you have a co-issuer, only one report of exempt distribution is needed. So just keep that in mind. Again, if your legal name's not accurate or anything like that, that goes back to your company profile. So you'd have to save this process, exit the form, and then go and edit that in your profile. If you select no, then you'll just be directed to the next page. And the next page is all about providing underwriter information. So you'll be required to submit the underwriter information if you've used one to assist in your capital raising process. We did not, so we'll simply save and continue and move on to the next page of the form. Now, this step is all about ensuring that kind of different industry information is provided and that's accurate. So you've likely selected an industry code when you set up your company profile. For our industry, we selected 414110. So that's clothing and clothing accessories, merchant wholesalers. If that's not correct and doesn't really sum up your business, you're able to change that. The next step is to disclose whether your issuer is planning to invest all of the funds raised into any of the following. So the following being mortgages, real estate, commercial business debt, consumer debt, you're investing the money into another private company or companies, investing the money into crypto assets, or none of these things. So this just helps us keep track of where your company is spending the money within certain scenarios. If you're not spending your money in any of those bullet points, then you just click not applicable and move on to the next step, which is the number of employees. Our company has less than 50 employees, so that we click 0 to 49. There's a bunch of different scales kind of moving up in size, so just ensure that whatever you put is accurate. And then for C, that's auto-populated. That's your profile number that you set up. The next section under item 6 is regarding the use of an investment fund. For us, because of everything that we've pre-selected, this isn't relevant and it's actually all grayed out, and we're not able to select that we used an investment fund in any way. So we just click save and continue for the purpose of this. Again, if this information isn't correct, this goes kind of, you have to again exit, go into your profile, change some of the different selections, and then come back and continue the process. So for our purposes, we're not able to fill any of this out, so we just click save and continue. So now we're on arguably the scariest page when completing a report of exempt distribution. And it can feel really confusing, but I promise you we'll help simplify it. This page is likely also the longest one for you to complete. Steps A and B are fairly straightforward, but a number of issuers make mistakes from steps C to G. So we'll start with the easy stuff and get a little bit harder. For the first part, it's what currency or currencies did you issue your securities in? Our company issued them in Canadian dollars, so that's what we select. If it's a different currency, select the one that applies to you. We also have to put in our distribution dates. So for us, we distributed from February to March at the dates that are there over a 1-month period. And that's what we've put. So if whatever your dates are, you select them in here. The end date is typically the date that you're going to distribute your securities. And now we're on to section C. Now, section C asks you to complete Schedule 1. And one of the funny things is there's no link attached on the page to take you to the Schedule 1 form, so people tend to have an issue finding it. The Canadian Securities Administrators website provides the template. It's an Excel document that must be used for this section. This template also includes detailed instructions and has an example that is fully filled out that can really easily be followed. So again, this template must be used. The link is there. You can also find it fairly easily by searching CSA Schedule 1 form 45-106 F1. It should pop up as probably the first option. You'll then be prompted to upload it. So you can see on this page, I have it uploaded and it'll pop up as a blue Schedule 1 form. And it's an Excel document. It'll tell you when you uploaded it as well. If you've made a mistake, you can always click the remove button. That's just kind of on the outskirts of this red circle here, and upload a new version. It doesn't like lock in. You're able to make changes. So I'll just briefly touch upon what the form looks like, because I know everyone's not overly familiar with Excel sometimes. So when you download this, this template form, the Excel document will obviously open. For those less familiar, note that you can cycle, these are called tabs at the bottom, so you can cycle through the tabs. The instructions page is usually the one that's first automatically showed. The next page is an example document that's already filled out. So you can see kind of what their fictional company put in. And then the third tab is actually the one that you should fill out for your company. And that's called Schedule 1-template. You should also be aware that this information is kept confidential and only the regulator can see this information unless a Freedom of Information and Protection of Policy request is successfully made. So within Schedule 1, I'll briefly go through some of the sections that must be completed within this form. Some are more straightforward than others. However, it highlights the amount of information that as you're doing a distribution that you should be actively keeping track of. So this is a lot of the information that you should be taking from different people that or companies that you've distributed securities to. So information that must be included within the form for each purchaser includes the full legal name of the individual or non-individual. For example, if you issued securities to a corporation, that would be a non-individual. The contact information, including the address, email, and phone number. Details about the securities that were purchased, including the number of the securities, the type of securities. So were they stocks, were they bonds, were they some other type of security? The amount paid, and the date of the actual purchase. Then you also need to know what exemption was relied upon. So for the purposes of this exercise, we relied upon the accredited investor exemption, which is under National Instrument 45106, Section 2.3. And we also relied upon families, friends, and business associates, that exemption, which is Section 2.5 of the same national instrument. You can rely on multiple exemptions and you can combine them in each jurisdiction. So for example, you'll see in one of the following pages where I have it filled out under Alberta. I had 8 accredited investors, and I also had 4 friends and family investors within the same province. So it doesn't all need to be the same exemption relied upon, especially within the same jurisdiction. Other information, such as whether the purchaser is a registrant, an insider of the issuer, or whether the individual is compensated for the distribution to this purchaser, is also required. So if that applies to you, then you need to fill that out. So just remember, for each purchaser, each purchaser of securities, every section might not apply, and therefore every section might not be filled out. So just ensure that you're carefully going through it line by line. So if you have, the only thing is it should line up with how many people or non-individuals that you've issued securities to. So if I issued securities to 60 people, there should be at least 60 lines in the Excel for each different transaction that happened. So then we're directed to the next section, which is section D. When you click Add Types of Securities Distributed, a small pop-up box will appear, and this will then allow you to go in depth about what type of securities you've distributed. So for the sake of our company, we distributed Class A common shares. We provided the security code, which for common shares, it's CMS. We provided a description of the security, so that would be Class A common shares. We provided the total number of securities distributed with this distribution. So that would be 1 million shares. Again, that's within this distribution. It's not total shares ever distributed. It's just for this distribution. And we then put in our share price, which for us was $500, and the total amount purchased in this distribution. So for us, we sold 65,000 shares. So you must complete this for every type of share that was issued. Under section E, include any rights like warrants or options that were distributed. You should provide the exercise price and expiry date for each one of these different rights. This might be rare. Some filers use options and warrants and other rights. Others don't and have no need or have never even heard of them. So just ensure that if this applies to you, that you are filling it out and filling out all the accurate information. For the sake of Stampede Essentials Inc., we didn't include any information on warrants because there weren't any, or options. So we just kind of click not applicable and continue. Under section F, you must provide a summary of the distribution by jurisdiction. So this is that page that I was talking about before. So you click that blue button up above, and then it'll allow you to pre-populate everything. So for example, I have 2 individuals under the friends and family exemption located in Nova Scotia who purchased securities from me for $3,000. While I have 8 accredited investors from Alberta and 4 friends and family in Alberta that have also invested 30,000. So like I said, you can have multiple exemptions relied upon within the same jurisdiction. That's no problem. You just separate it out here and you kind of talk about how much for each you've distributed and really parse it out for us. And then at the bottom here, you basically tally up the total number of unique purchasers within this distribution type. So for us, if you add up all these, hopefully it adds up to 26. And that means we've filled out this section correctly. Item G did not apply for this type of distribution as we're not an investment fund as stated earlier. If you are, or if you feel like you need to fill this out, then you'd likely have to change that in your CDR Plus profile. For our purposes, we're not even able to click this gray button that says add net proceeds. So as a result, we just click save and continue, and now we're done the hardest part. The next section is to provide information for each person to whom the issuer directly provides or will provide any compensation in connection with the distribution. So, for example, most issuers using offering memorandum require dealers, and a lot of issuers selling to accredited investors also use dealers. Whatever your specific case may be, a common mistake we see is people do not ensure that this section is consistent with what they actually put within the Schedule 1 form that we just talked about. So just remember that if you select yes, you will be required to include a long list of the compensation details for the individual or for the business that was involved, and that should match anything that you've put in Schedule 1. However, it is also very common that no compensation will be paid. And in this situation, we didn't use a dealer, like I said at the beginning. So we would just move on to the next page and click save and continue. So again, if this form applies to you, then ensure that you're including all this information. Now you'll be prompted to provide information for your directors, executive officers, and any promoters. This process is fairly straightforward. So under that section titled indicate whether the issuer is any of the following, select the most applicable option from the drop-down menu. For us, we put none of the above. As Stampede Essentials Inc. is an Albertan company based in Calgary, none of these options really applied to us. The next section asks for you to add the information for all your directors, officers, and promoters. When you click on the blue button, you'll be asked to provide the full legal name, the current address, and the position of the director, officer, or promoter. And then once you click save on that kind of pop-up menu that occurs, you'll see that it's added to the bottom really long red circle that's there. So for example, I'm listed, I live in Alberta, and I'm listed as the director, executive officer of Stampede Essentials Inc. So you can have multiple people listed here. You likely will have multiple people listed here. So just ensure that after you save the new pop-up box every time, that it does populate this section down here. Then under section C, you'll be prompted to provide any promoter information if that's applicable to you. Section C requires you to provide the date. All under section C, you're also required to provide the date that the report is signed to certify its contents. So that's the certification date of the report. The CEO's email address and phone number. So for example, there's my information and your full residential address for each individual listed as a director, officer, and promoter. So again, here's the ASC offices listed and my title again. So Another common mistake is these don't match up with the last page. So just ensure everything that you're filling out here matches with everything you filled out in part A and B prior. The next step is you'll be prompted to read and certify the report of exempt distribution. This process includes confirming your name, your title, phone number where you can be reached, and your email address. Do not forget to date the document. People often forget to date the document. So make sure that you're doing that at the bottom there, and then click Save and Continue after you've completed the certification process. You'll then be prompted to confirm the name of the contact person for this specific report filing. This process confirms your designated contact person for the filing, and you can also opt to add additional individuals. So this can include adding your legal counsel or your lawyer. You can add your executive assistants or secretarial staff. That way, you're able to get notified on any changes that might be made, or if you have any comments or questions, then you're able to be promptly notified about what's been happening. And this next section that you're at, which is step 13 of 16, prompts you to select whether this document has been previously filed. So if you select yes, you'll be asked for the reference number for the previous filing, and the previous filed document, and prompted to search for it within your filing submissions and numbers. So when you submit a document, it will kind of be located under your profile and your company profile. Then you'd select whether this document has been previously filed, and if it has, then you insert that information. For us, this is the first time we're filing this, so we just click no. The additional document section here is also for issuers to include any other documents that might make sense within this specific filing. So issuers should not be filing offering memorandums under this section, or any offering documents or marketing materials. There are other ways within CDAR Plus that you should be doing that. This section is for documents such as cover letters, explanatory documents, maybe other filings required with this report of exempt distribution that are outlined within the specific exemptive relief or reliefs that you've relied upon. So that's what this is for. So don't necessarily upload your offering memorandum. That's not really what this section's for. But if any of these other documents apply to you, then that is what it's for. And then you'll be sent to a fee page. Nothing's really required. Basically, the fees are calculated based on everything that you've selected previously. And for us, we just click Save and Continue, and we move on to one of the final steps. So this final step is basically prompted to review all of the information one final time to ensure everything is accurate. And there should be a green check mark that says completed next to each of these blue boxes. And if that's there, that means at least all of the mandatory information has been filled out. But please ensure that it's correct and give it one more review. For ours, it was, so I just gonna move on to the next page, which allows you to review your generated documents. So once you've completed your review of the document, and you click this checkbox that's in the red circle there, you'll then be able to generate the documents and download them. And I'll show you what it looks like on the next page. You should save that document if you click submit, because that will kind of be what your filing looks like. And just it's ensure to keep that on file somewhere. So once you click submit, congratulations. So you've now filed your first report of exempt distribution. So this is what it looks like. It usually was typically many pages. You'll be able to download your form. And if you realize a mistake from this point onwards and you need to correct something, you'll need to go through the process to amend the filing. And basically, you start from step one and you select amend filing, and then it'll prompt you how to do that. It's a very similar process. So before we move on to Tanya's section, I thought it's important to address this because it's very possible that some of you attended this report of exempt distribution webinar and you go, oh my gosh, I was supposed to file one. I just did a distribution or just did a distribution years ago and I never did this. I've never heard of this process. So the first, the question that we typically get emailed is, am I in trouble? What should I do? And it's common for these types of issuers did not really know that they had reporting requirements. Most of these issues, such as this realization, often happen once a lawyer is brought in to review your company and maybe provide you with advice. And the best path forward is always transparency. So you can contact the ASC and let them know that you missed the required timeline for filing, but go about correcting that issue and submit your report at the earliest opportunity. In most cases, the ASC is very understanding and a small late fee is likely issued. I would like to reiterate that it is essential to file your RED on time. These reports are an important part of ensuring private issuers and private businesses in Alberta are not only complying with securities law, but also contributing to really a safe and efficient private market in Alberta. Filing REDs are an important part of ensuring that there is investor confidence in our province and really ensure that our province can continue to thrive when it comes to private investments in Albertan businesses. So to learn more about any of the fees and how they're calculated, you can look at in section 11 of ASC Rule 13-501. There's also a fee calculator for REDs that's also available at the website link that's there. And also note, maybe it wasn't required for you to file a RED. So a report is not required to be filed by a private issuer using the private issuer exemption. So really just take a look at everything and see if it applies to you. And if you're unsure, you could always ask. So this brings us to our actual comments and market trends section. So I would like to introduce to you Tanya Fleming. She is our manager of the private markets and innovation team here at the ASC. Tanya has been at the ASC for the last 5 years. She's previously served as general counsel at 3 publicly traded companies, and before that worked at a large national law firm here in Canada. So she not only brings a perspective of a regulator, but also as a lawyer that's helped many companies with various parts of the report of exempt distribution filing process. So welcome, Tanya, and I'll pass it off to you.
Okay, good. Well, thank you, Gregory. And I'd like to thank Gregory for taking the time to do this webinar. There are lots and lots of resources for how to file a report of exempt distribution on the CSA website. But if you're not familiar with it, they can be hard to find. And that was really the goal here, was to do a step-by-step guide so that you can file a RED on your own. Companies will often hire a filing agent or have their law firm do it. But if you are in the position where you are looking to save money, you're one of those scrappy startups out there, this definitely is something you can do on your own. And so we hope that this will be a resource for you. We'll have it recorded on the ASC website. And so you can actually go back and go through the presentation step by step to the point where you know you need that further information. I just wanted to take a moment and just say where we see the most common errors. So it's on the Schedule 1, which is the Excel sheet that accompanies your filing. So this is an Excel sheet that has to be the specific one that the CSA has mandated. And we do know there was a previous version of this spreadsheet, and some issuers, some companies that have been doing this a while will sometimes use that old sheet, and that will cause problems for us on our end. So I wanted to just point to the place on the CSA website as well, where you can find the link to that Excel document. And also just emphasize that there is this CDAR Plus Help Center. And this is the area where all of the resources are found. There's guides, there's question and answers, lots and lots of information here, hopefully to answer all of your questions when you're filing this document. But in the Excel sheet, so that's the initial comment, is please use the correct one, the most up-to-date Excel sheet. And then be sure to follow the instructions. So at the bottom of the Excel sheet, there's multiple tabs. The first tab is instructions, and it does have specific instructions for each one of the cells in that sheet. So for example, if there's joint purchasers, you'll be using, both of the names with the and signed in between them. That's all outlined in the instructions, but, please make sure to have a look at that. Where there is a drop down, use the drop down. So we do have, sometimes people file these and they just type in the information instead of using the drop down. Because of course we're reading these electronically, again, that's the sort of thing that can cause a problem on our end. So to the extent there's a drop down, use the drop down. Please don't type anything in. And then when you are entering the information, if there is someone who's been compensated in respect of the transaction, that you'll have already filled that information in as you're going through the report of exempt distribution that Gregory has already outlined. But that information is also contained again on this Excel sheet. So and that's a common error that we see, is we have the information on the Excel sheet and it doesn't quite match what you filled in earlier. And of course, that will create a flag and an issue for us. So please make sure that to the extent there is someone compensated, the information that you've entered in the CDAR Plus form as you're going through is the same information that you're entering into the schedule. The Excel sheet, unfortunately, I would say is built for lawyers or law firms. So it will often say, it just says at the top, if you're using exemption 2.3, and it doesn't say what that exemption is. So this is one of those things where, I think normal people don't know what exemption 2.3 is. And it doesn't say that in the sheet. So you will have to go back to the instruction sheet at the very beginning, and it will say 2.3 is the accredited investor exemption, and it'll give a bit of information about that. 2.5 is our friends, family, and business associates exemption, and 2.9 is our offering memorandum exemption. So just the numbers are in the sheet, and the actual name of the exemption is in the instruction manual, is in the instruction sheet. So you can check there to find that information. And as Gregory said, of course, you can be using multiple exemptions in a share transaction. So you've sold securities, and some people have come in using that accredited investor exemption. Other people have come in using friends and family. This is the example that Gregory gave earlier. And so in the sheet, you will fill in specific information in the column that says 2.3, which is accredited investor, for that purchaser, and then other information in the column 2.5 for friends and family. So again, that's just a common, lawyers might know what those numbers are, but you probably don't. So check there, and that way you'll have a better chance of getting the information in the right place. To the extent you have questions, please, you can contact us. And again, there are lots and lots of resources on the CDAR Plus site. So please look there, and we wish you the best in filing and getting your reports in as correctly as possible. Thanks again.